We're here to talk with Ian and Todd about what they've learned on their journey as Haven and what they're seeing with their clients and in the market. So I'm Jennifer Hers. I'm a principal with EY. Here with me, Ian and Todd.
Hello.
So gentlemen, it's been about a year. I think a year ago, around this time, you were on stage talking about the journey that you've been on. Tell us a little bit about what you've learned and what's changed at Haven in the last year.
Yeah, what a year it has been. It feels like yesterday, but it was exactly on this stage a year ago that we announced the launch of Haven Tech. And we didn't even have a company at that point in time. And since then, over the last year, we have spun ourselves out as an independent entity with our own P&L, with our own board, brand new offices in New York and Boston and Hong Kong. So that's been one element of the change. Even more excitingly, we have started serving clients. So we have started serving 2 clients. I wanted to thank them for having the confidence in taking a bet on us. We're serving one client here in North America and one in Asia with targeted go-live dates in a few months. And then one other aspect of change that you might have talked about is, Yaron was with us here on stage. He's the original founder and CEO, and since then he has decided to transition to more of an advisor role. And Todd and I have decided to step up as co-CEOs and get ready to scale this to the next chapter. So, living the dream, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, it's an exciting time for you all, and wow, an exciting time for the industry. So much change coming out of COVID, all of the change you all have been through, all of the challenges that we're facing, and opportunities as an industry as we strive to close the protection gap, modernize the experience, drive different ways of engaging digitally, evolve our product set. One of the things that gets in the way is always legacy. We see people focusing on, do I need to look at the entire ecosystem? Can I look at bits and pieces, whether that's new business and underwriting or my producer engagement? What are you all seeing? Where's your focus been, and what have the learnings been for you?
Yeah, maybe I take the broader question and
sure.
then ask you to double click on legacy. Look, it's been a year. We have talked to, I would say, more than 100 carriers, and I wanted to again thank for their patience and their guidance in terms of what's valuable for them. And for me personally, I think there are 3 kind of big lessons, right? One is there is white space here for a player like us with a purpose-built kind of code-to-claim platform, which is also modular, to serve the life, annuity, and disability space. Especially when coupled with a team that is seasoned industry professionals who have run the insurance businesses and who have a mindset of like hand-holding the client to value, right? And just marching on. I think the other big input we got from the market is what are the use cases that our clients are finding valuable and want to invest in. So things like digital life challenger, right? Things that we have done at Haven, annuity innovator, modern front office with embedded distribution, automated underwriting, etc. And then the final theme is what the theme of this panel is, which is all of this is great, but that's just focusing on new business is probably only 10% of the value. A lot of the value is locked up in legacy systems, and clients are interested in liberating those policies from the legacy systems and bringing some of that value from digitization, automation to their legacy policy systems, right? And when we share with them the sort of value that we have seen, 50% drop in cost structure, et cetera, they're interested in taking on that complexity with us. And I think hopefully it's a bit refreshing to have a new player who is not scared of dealing with legacy. So.
Well, and I guess I'm not either. So as you do that, what have been some of the big rocks that you've seen with your clients, or things you didn't expect that you came across, and what have you learned?
So yeah, and I think, as Ian said, there's definitely a huge value in kind of moving off the legacy platforms. But I think one of the things that we definitely have looked at a lot is how do we ensure that we address kind of the right problem when we're doing that. So we actually do quite a bit of work on kind of block analysis in the context of doing a possible migration. right? So things like looking for, is it the right block to bring over because there's a life left on the policies, et cetera? We're not bringing something over that's about to age off, and also that we aren't bringing over one-off policies that have a huge amount of complexity that require building a lot of extra complexity into the platform or analyzing a lot of extra data just to bring off a very small volume, right? So although I think everyone's always interested in kind of seeing can they modernize, I think also just being kind of careful about like what are the right things, what are the right targets to take on from that migration point of view is definitely something we've seen is valuable.
Well, and so as you do that, and as you make those choices, what are some of the outcomes you've achieved, and how has that changed your approach as you work with your clients and even your own platform and strategies around how to address some of the new discoveries that you're finding as you're trying to deal with the legacy, wall it off, and or migrate, or make different decisions about how to manage that business moving forward?
Let me take the kind of the value point in a second, and Todd can probably talk a little bit about how to get there. So we think of value along a few dimensions, right? One, straight up, is cost structure, right? It's not worth the ROI if we go through all of this pain, all of these sleepless nights, and then the policy is not running at a markedly lower cost structure. So we have typically seen 50 to 80% drop in the cost structure, and that's driven by a few things. It's driven by more modern cloud infrastructure, right, where you're not trying to manage things in your own local data center, which is not optimal. It is driven by a lot of self-service. What has been interesting is that these policies, which were sold 20, 30 years ago, is still seeing a significant amount of self-service from both customers and advisors as soon as we do the migration. So it was not that the customers didn't want to do self-service, they just could not, right? And then the other big factor is automation, right? So when we do this migration, we see a significant amount of automation in underwriting, decision-making, illustrations, policy admin kind of tasks, et cetera, et cetera. Apart from the cost structure, we also see significant improvement in agility, right? We release platform updates once every 2 weeks, which is probably 10x faster than any updates that happen in the legacy system. As well as in terms of sales productivity, we find that the agent base is quite energized when they're working on digital systems where they can see kind of line of sight all the way to where the requests are and how they're being handled.
Yeah, and I think another question you asked was about kind of lessons learned as we've been going through this. So I think a big lesson is just like trying to catch issues as early on as possible in the process. And we're dealing with legacy policies that have been on a platform for potentially decades, and people don't necessarily remember all the details of how they got to where they are. They don't necessarily remember all the details of even how the system works from a legacy perspective. So we've actually built some tools to allow us to do kind of back testing and modeling of policies before we even attempt a migration, right? And so that's been really useful because it allows us to basically mimic doing the whole calculation for a set of policies for premiums, cash value, et cetera, and then compare that to what we see on the legacy platform and look for places where there's discrepancies, right? And that allows us to find weird kind of manual things that may have been done on the legacy platform because as workarounds and what have you. And by doing that early on, it allows us to avoid getting a lot of data into our platform that has integrity issues and challenges down the road, right? So anything we can do up front to prevent the kind of the migration in without knowing that we have a very solid foundation of data has been very useful as well.
So as you look forward, as this continues to be one of the main opportunities, and just in terms of data, richness of data, we refer to the golden ticket of a 360-degree view of the customer. How are you seeing some of the successes with these migrations affect how companies are managing their customers, how agents are managing their book of business, and what kind of power do you feel that that's unleashing? Yeah,
sure, and you can chip in, but I think the best way of answering is just a little anecdote. So I was actually talking with someone last week who kind of services one of our converted blocks, And she was just saying how amazing the value is of doing that. And it's kind of like, as much as we focus on the cost savings aspect, there's very much a benefit from an operational point of view, right? They're now working on a modern platform, much easier to service things. And she was actually even saying that the customer has an impact as well. So not only can a customer go in and look at their policy, but just any kind of post-issue servicing, because they're not dealing with as cumbersome a platform, they're not dealing with a lot of the legacy issues, they've just seen really a huge value. And so she was actually kind of thanking us for like, oh, this is really actually much better now. Like my job is actually much better on this. And the timing was great, because I'm like, oh, I'm actually going to talk about this soon, so this is awesome. So.
Yeah, we couldn't emphasize that better, right? We track customer and advisor NPS like a hawk, as you would expect for a modern company, right? So we subscribe to our Slack channel where we see every single piece of input, positive, neutral, negative, from customers and advisors. And the overall results are very encouraging, right? So customer NPS is generally in the high 70s, low 80s, which compared to the 20s, 30s in the industry is a major gap, major difference. Same thing with advisor NPS. But the employee stories are the ones that come through in the most amount of richness, right? Where they say, I was like locked in green screen and now I can actually do my job and advise the client much better. So those are very encouraging.
So what's next? So as you think about what you've learned and all of the great experiences you've had, as you're working with clients both within North America and now globally, are you seeing the same types of challenges? Are there different things that you're really looking to focus on or continue to expand on as you look towards the next year? And what might you be saying on this stage a year from now?
I can take that. So goal number one is to make our clients successful, right? So that's MassMutual as well as our 2 new clients. So that would be a lot of our energy will go towards that. And we're very serious about the commitments that we make because, you know, our reputation is staked on the value that these clients get. So that'll be goal number one. Goal number two would be to then use that foundation of learnings and success and hopefully reference clients to start scaling. Our intent is to serve our clients very deeply, but at the same time, we probably will start taking on a few more clients over the next few years and lead through their digital transformation. And hopefully, as we do that, we'll exhibit the same kind of courage to not just do the surface level stuff, but go deeper and do these legacy migrations and get the maximum amount of value that the client can get from technology. Now would be a good time if you tell me you have different goals.
No, I think that's spot on. And I think to answer your other question, we definitely are seeing interest on migrations, you know, across the board. I think there's a lot of interest in how do we move forward with a digital platform, but then as you said, once we get there, how do we actually also bring forward the existing policies?
Well, and I think, you know, one of the hardest parts is to what you said earlier, which ones do you migrate and why? Which ones do you leave and why? And then how do you help manage through that? So as you think about that, you know, how are you thinking about continuing to evolve what you've learned about success strategies? Because migrating is very hard. There are a lot of companies that have tried and failed. So what are some of the things you're thinking about to continue to help make that process easier so that you can bring some of that data, whether it's structured or unstructured, or if it's missing pieces? How are you thinking about that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, in addition to the tools I mentioned, I think another piece is we built in a lot of kind of data quality checks throughout the process, and so that just helps us quite a bit. As we start to bring the data in, we will stop as we're bringing it in if there are issues, and I think that we've seen really something that we continue to refine as we go on and just kind of understand what are the right ways of doing those checks and how do we add more of those, and then using that data together with our clients, the carriers, to say, hey, here's what we're seeing in the data. How do we improve that, both for the existing block, but even going forward? How do we make sure that we're moving in a direction where we can do more of these conversions? I think we definitely seen a lot of benefit there.
Yeah, and one thing, Todd, I've seen the team work on it, and that I find impressive, is this mindset to first start by saying it is very hard, right? There is no easy button, silver bullet, etc., right? So first of all, saying it's very hard. but it is also very valuable to solve, and someone must step up to try to solve it. And to use smarts, be smart about, like Todd said, what to pick up, use disciplined execution, but at the same time just going in knowing that some of these things require a lot of hard work. Our team puts in a lot of work for each of these successful migrations. So there's no working around that. You can be smart about certain tools that makes it a little bit more effective and efficient, but ultimately there are some things that just we need to like drill through granite to get to the other side.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for sharing your perspectives on not only your journey, but your journey helping companies with their transformation and migrating the very rich data that helps propel them to the future. So thank you. Look forward to hearing more in a year about what else you can share.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.